Hello again, everyone. Patrick Mitchell here, and welcome to the second in a series of, well, I'm not sure how many videos will be generated off of this since I have only 10 minutes to do what I need to do for example purposes. It will most certainly take some doing some of these things not on video in order to make the series move along and not drag out, because I don't want you guys to be bored. But let's get into the latest video that we got. So again, this is the same project that we did before, and the last video we were working on the bass, and I listened to it a bit more and decided to try out a different compression for the bass tracks. Right now I'm using the channel strip compressor on the Neve 88RS, which is by no means a bad compressor. I just believe it's not necessarily the right one for these tracks. Each plugin and piece of hardware has a little bit different feel. It's based on whatever the circuit is inside of what the hardware is. Every circuit is a little bit different. They use largely the same components, but they might be routed a little differently, and it makes each piece of analog equipment unique in itself. And these plugins match about 80 to 85% of what the hardware will do. So to the trained ear you can hear a difference, but to the average person you really can't hear the difference in what the hardware does as opposed to what the software does. So we're going to try a different piece of hardware or software. I'm going to use a Fatso. It's called Fatso. It stands for Full Analog Tape Simulator and Optimizer. So it also has a knee compressor in it. So I'm going to give that a try. And again, for time constraints, I'm going to use the presets that are pre-programmed within the plugin, so we're not wasting a bunch of time. I've also taken the liberty to move to reassign my signal path. I'm taking the channel strip down one notch and putting it after the Fatso. So what that means is when the signal, the raw track, is going to hit the Fatso first before it actually hits the channel strip and the EQ. So let's choose our Fatso here. That's funny, Fatso. Anyway, so there's the Fatso. We're going to choose the bass friendly patches in here. There's one called Fat Tony's Bass. We're going to start with that one. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and bypass the channel strip for now, and we're going to hear what the Fatso actually does. I'll bypass the Fatso and then unbypass it for you. That's without anything. That's with the Fatso. Now I hear something interesting happening right now. The drums and the bass are now out of sync with each other. So what's happening is with this plugin, it is generating some latency within the system. Now what that means is when the signal passes into the Fatso, the software takes a little bit longer to process the audio before it spits it out into the rest of the signal chain, which creates some lag, or what is called latency. So I'm going to come down here and make sure that I have my delay compensation on, which it is. And that's interesting because usually the delay compensation will fix any of those latency issues, but it doesn't look like it's fixing this. So what I'm probably going to have to do is physically go in and time align all these tracks. So right now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and unbypass the channel strip so we can hear them both together. You can at least hear them both together. They're not in sync with each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight this and we're going to actually grab this and move it ahead in the timeline ever so slightly, and we're going to see if that lines it up. It's a little better. It's still lagging just a little bit, so we're going to take and do this one more time. That sounds a lot better. So unfortunately, what I've got to do now is I have to go through. This bass track is cut up into like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 different things that have to move right now. So I'm going to go through real quick and try and time align all these since I only have 10 minutes to set this example. So we'll take this. We're going to move it ahead ever so slightly. We'll give it a listen real quick. That's good. We'll go to the next section, and that is a little bit behind, so we'll move that ahead. Still a little behind. Let's take and move it just ever so slightly once again. That's better. Moving on to the next section. There it is right there. We'll take this and move it ever so slightly ahead. That's better. We'll take this just before that. Way out of whack. Taking this, moving this ahead to there. That still sounds a little bit behind by microseconds. That's better. Moving on again to the next section. And get the cursor set correctly. That sounds like it only lags a little bit, so I'm going to move it ahead ever so slightly. Alright, that's a lot better. Now we have one left. Let's take a listen to this. Okay, that's the end of the song, so I'm going to move that ahead slightly. I think I might have moved that ahead just a little bit too much, so we'll move it back a hair. Better. Alright, so I just went through and time aligned every one of the bass tracks of one of the bass tracks. I still have the overdub tracks to do, but I'm not going to have time. I'm already 8 minutes into this video and coming to the end. But I think I'm going to call this good for right now. What I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and time align the other bass track off of video. And by the time the next video I make comes around, we'll move on to maybe what the guitars are doing, or better yet, probably the drums. We'll take the drums, because the drums kind of sound a little thin. I like to get the drums and the bass gelling together so they sound well-rounded and fat. So thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day and evening.